Good afternoon, everyone. This is part two of the video that I want to have you all look at in place of class on Wednesday. I don't know what the hurricane's going to do. We may well not be dismissed on Wednesday, but I wanted to go ahead and put this in an asynchronous format so you can do this on your own because I don't know where each of you may be going to either hunker down for the storm or going to help family or whatever the case may be. So I figured this was just the safest way to do it. So I want to cover some of the materials that I wanted to cover on Wednesday with you. You should have already viewed part one, the lecture part one video that I put together that was all about your learning strategies inventory. And you already have access to the notebook reflection assignment that'll be due on Friday. So I'm giving you a little extra time because, again, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the storm. So all of your assignments that would normally be due this week on either Wednesday or Thursday are all now due on Friday at 5:15 p.m. So keep that in mind. Everything's due by 5:15 p.m. No extensions to that. So I want to start off by talking about this new module that you have that I want you to go in and look at. It's called Virtual Events, and I've got links to virtual events that are in there. These events, remember, you have to do a total of 4 virtual events during the semester, and 2 of those are going to be your one-on-one meetings with me. So that means you got to come up with 2 additional virtual events to attend during the semester. One of the events that you can use are going to be going to one of our seminars at the university. So we have seminars that are at Fridays from 1:30 to 2:30, and here are the links to those Microsoft Teams meetings for those particular events. So the first one coming up will be this Friday, September the 18th at 1:30. You can join this and you can hear a talk by Amit Sharma at Ohio State, and then you'll be able to complete the online assignment and that you have to do for each of the 2 virtual events that you attend. Okay, so I have some of these scheduled. They're all scheduled actually up through November the 20th. So you can attend any of these that you want, but you can only count one of them towards your virtual event requirement. Now, I'm going to set your virtual event requirements are going to be due towards the end of the semester, so you'll have plenty of time to find another virtual event. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me about trying to find you a virtual event or to see whether or not the event that you might want to go to would count. So think of what might count as a virtual event, an ACS meeting. If you go to a virtual ACS meeting, I'll count that as one of your virtual events. Anything that's not, I don't count sorority and fraternity events. It has to be something other than that. So if you can come across something at, career services or something along those lines, well, we usually count those type of events. So just get in touch with me about that and you should be fine. So highly recommend you think about this one on this coming Friday if you've got time. Greg Butler from Oakland Chemicals would be an interesting one, I think, for you all to watch. I believe he is the CEO of Oakland Chemicals, and it's actually not Oakland. I think this is Oakwood. I think that's a misspelling there. But it's a major chemical manufacturer, so you might be able to get some interesting information there if you're interested in maybe the business side of chemistry, so on and so forth. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for that. So that's the first thing that I wanted you to know. So you need to put these in your calendar so that you are reminded when to go. Okay? So you can count one of these as one of your virtual events this semester. All right, let's go to the stuff that we would be talking about on Wednesday morning. Okay, you'll already see I've got lecture part one there, so you should have seen that already. And by the time you're seeing this, there will be a lecture part two that will be right under there as well. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time and talk with you about some of the resources that you have available to you through the American Chemical Society. And I highly recommend that you all consider joining the National American Chemical Society. I think it's very inexpensive for students, and if you're really thinking about seriously about becoming a practicing chemist, it's a good idea to get involved with the ACS early on. You can be part of the Younger Chemist Committee and really help shape chemical policy, believe it or not, across the organization at an early age by being involved in those types of things. So when you go to the ACS Student Resources page, it will take you to ACS Student Resources. There we go. For some reason it didn't want to open up, but you just click on it up there at the top and that will take you to our education/students piece for the ACS student webpage. If you go to acs.org, you see the whole thing, but this is taking you to the students and educators program pages. And so you can find information for high school students. Obviously, that doesn't apply to you anymore. But if you click on the undergraduate, you will see all kinds of information on student chapters, things you might need to know about undergraduate research, going from college to career, finding internships, summer jobs, and co-ops, scholarships. The American Chemical Society does provide scholarship opportunities. So you can be thinking about that ACS Scholars Program. If you qualify, these are renewable scholarships. If you want to enter any of the fields in the chemical sciences, so this includes polymer science, chemistry, biochemistry. And so this would be a good thing. I highly recommend you consider it. The ACS Hawk Second Career Teacher Scholarship, this wouldn't apply to you, obviously, because you're not going into your second career. So there's plenty of scholarship opportunities, but really you're going to be mostly focused on the ACS Scholars Program. You can find information on planning for graduate school or study abroad programs. Remember, we had some people come talk to us from our study abroad, so you can find information about study abroad in the chemical sciences here as well. You can also find the In Chemistry magazine. This is the student member magazine, and you can find a lot of useful articles in chemistry. And so here's some recent articles that you can look at. Again, none of this is going to cost you a dime to go in and look at how to apply to graduate school. Building your network, right? It's very important that you all think about putting together a network if you're planning on becoming a professional of any kind. Really, it's important to build a network of people who you can rely on later on as you start to look for jobs and go to graduate school or medical school. That's going to be very, very important. So you can just click on that and you can learn about ways in which you can build your network virtually, given the fact that we're in the COVID-19 pandemic right now. So it's a good article talking about the various things that you can do to help build that network. I highly recommend you peruse some of these articles. Managing student loan debt after graduation. For some of you, this is going to be a serious situation that you need to be thinking about right now. And so getting some information about what you might expect when you finish with your loan debt. What can you do to stay on top of it all and not hurt your credit rating? I will tell you, I had a wise lady once tell me when I got my first student loan. So I had to get student loans to go to college, like many of you as well. And when I went and signed that paperwork for that first loan, she kind of took me under her wing and she said, "Don't borrow more than twice your expected first year salary in the job that you're going to do." And I stayed to that pretty much. I stayed pretty close to that. And in fact, that was very good advice because the payment ended up being really less than what you would pay for a car payment. And so it really wasn't that painful of a situation to be in, making those student loan payments for the number of years that I did. And eventually you get to a point where you just kind of get tired of writing that check every week or every month, excuse me, and you just end up paying it off. But definitely some good advice there. So definitely read anything that you can on managing that student loan debt right now, because I know you all are thinking with student debt that that's going to be down the road before you have to pay that off. But believe me, it'll be here sooner rather than later. And when you have to start making those student loan payments, it is definitely nice to have a job in the field that you studied for and are able to make those payments without too much trouble if you manage it right. So I highly recommend people don't borrow everything that they'll let you borrow. Borrow what you need, enough to keep you a full-time student and keep you from where you don't have to work too much outside, because you want to be able to, of course, do well in your schoolwork and not have to work too many hours outside of class. But anyway, just some advice there. Try to keep that loan total amount that you borrow in a loan to less than or equal to twice your first year's anticipated annual salary in your job. So, my first year I anticipated making, about 50 to 60,000, and I kept my student loans well under that value. Did I say twice? Your first year's annual salary should be twice your total student loan. So keep that in mind. So if you think your first job is going to get you 80,000 a year, then you want to think about keeping your loans at 40,000 or under. I had that backwards. So it's getting late. I'm getting tired. I apologize for that, but I think you all understand. You want to keep the amount that you borrow, or your first year's annual salary should be twice your borrowed amount for your student loan. So if you keep that in mind, I think you'll be able to afford your student loan without too much burden on yourself. So anyway, I just wanted to go through some of the pages that you have in the American Chemical Society, and so there are ways for you to find information on internships and fellowships and the Sci Scholars Internship Program. This is an industrial internship. Highly recommend it. I've sent students to compete in this before. It is competitive, but it's a very good program. So if you have any questions about it, just look here, and if you have anything further than that, I'd be happy to sit and talk with you about any of those types of programs or cooperatives. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the various reading assignments. You all can do that. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit about why I found some of these things interesting. So I found it very interesting in the business concentrate section of CNN News that IBM has just come out with a chemical synthesis robot. And so it's coupled with this artificial intelligence retrosynthesis software that allows now for researchers to make chemicals or compounds, if you will, in a fairly automated fashion. So for example, if you knew a molecule that you wanted to make, and you knew the structure of that or how it was put together, you can feed that to the artificial intelligence through this IBM Reaction for Chemistry, which is a free software. You might want to go play with that. And it will take that structure and it will work backwards from that structure to figure out what you would need to do to actually synthesize it from simpler starting materials. And then the robot actually can go through the process of doing the reactions for you. The reason I bring this up is because this is becoming more and more common in chemistry. There will be a day when the chemist won't go into the lab as we typically think about it and use a bunch of glassware. It probably won't happen so much during my career, but during your career, it's very possible that you could have one of these synthesis robots on your bench, and you're really doing the brain work behind all of the science, and then letting the robots actually do most of the synthesis. Um, so if you find yourself interested in robotics, if you find yourself interested in computers, things like artificial intelligence, and yet you still have an interest in chemistry, this is just another avenue for you to think about potential career opportunities. Working in a company like IBM that's working on both the hardware side of things, so kind of the mechanical or computer type engineering or electrical engineering, and also on the computer side of it, where you're doing artificial intelligence and trying to teach an AI system how to do chemical synthesis, how to make molecules. I find that very, very fascinating, and so uh, I thought you all might be interested in that. Kind of spark some of your interest in sort of the non-traditional kind of careers that we may have available to us as scientists these days. Likewise, again, another C and E in talks with, this time with Nancy Gorov. Um, she is a congressional candidate. Now, I did not put this up there to talk about politics per se, and this article is part of what your attendance assignment is all about, and so you really need to read through this. But I want to again highlight the fact that a lot of people with good, solid chemical training end up going into a variety of careers. Again, not all scientists end up wearing white lab coats all day. Now, obviously, Dr. Gorov was a practicing chemist um, when she was in New York, um, and you know moved up in administration at her institution, and is now a congressional candidate, and talks about in this article why it's important for people in politics to have some science background. And I think that's an important thing to think about. So I don't really care whether or not you're Democrat or Republican, conservative or a little more liberal, whatever your case may be. Again, I want you just to know that we do need people in leadership positions at the state level, the local level, and of course the national level, who have a good, solid grounding in science and scientific principles. And this is an example of where we have somebody who's decided to really switch gears and move into politics full time. And this talks about how she came to that realization that this was for her. So again, a very interesting read that I think you all will be able to get some good information from. And then last but not least, last but not least, again, I'm getting tired here. Career ladder with Luis Alvarez, and this is another example of a showing how a career can go from one point to the next over a period of time. And so Lewis started out at West Point studying chemistry, did military service, obviously, since he was a West Point cadet and graduate. Um, what he did as a service member, and then his return to academia for a higher level degree, and is now an implant entrepreneur. And how that career path led to where he is today, I think is very, very interesting. And so I think you'll enjoy this particular short article an awful lot. Very interesting on how one can make and design implants that aren't rejected by the body, for example, is a very, very important area of science, especially if you're interested in chemistry that may have more of a medicinal, or chemistry that may have more of a medical bend to it. Something along these lines you should find quite interesting, and how he came to realize that this was the area that he needed to be in, I think is also very interesting. So I'm going to stop there, and I wish you all to stay safe during the storm and during COVID, obviously. Please continue to be safe with all of that. And I will see you all next week. If you have any questions about any of these readings or about any of the virtual event assignments, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Remember, all of my office hours are by arrangement, so please get in touch with me if you would like to discuss a topic. I'm always happy to take a few minutes and talk with you by a Teams meeting about whatever concerns or questions you may have. Have a good one.